After working as an Internet Safety Program Coordinator at the Massachusetts Attorney General's office, Katie began working with the Office of Internet Crimes Against Children. Under the supervision of one of the country's best ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children prosecutors, Katie developed a variety of proactive programs to deliver to students, parents, educators, communities, and law enforcement agencies throughout the country. While working for the Massachusetts State Police and the Massachusetts Missing Children Clearinghouse, Katie continued to develop interactive programs that have been featured on programs such as CNN and have been mentioned in a variety of media, including Vanity Fair magazine. Welcome, Katie. How are you?
I'm great, Joe. How are you?
Outstanding. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us today. So,
yes, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Outstanding. So your background, Katie, and we've had a chance to speak a little bit before we're on the interview today, really getting out to see a lot of what's happening across the U.S. And your focus, as you said, was not just on cyberbullying, but really spans the spectrum of crimes against children or things that are involving children and the internet. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing right now.
I'm seeing a lot right now. I will argue that I have the coolest job on the face of the planet for a few reasons. One, because I have ants in my pants and I can't sit still. So, the nature of this job with everything going on involving technology and kids changes every single day, every single minute, getting updates, changes. So, from the things that I'm learning about from a research perspective, I'm also getting to get into the schools and get, on the ground level with these kids and ask them, hey, this research just came out on sexting or whatever it may be. What do you think about this? And the kids will tell me, that's ridiculous, or yeah, we totally agree, or no, this is something else we're hearing about. So I think the fact that, just getting on the ground level, like I said, with these kids and being able to hear firsthand from them, not from a news media report, what's going on, I think it's just is great. I mean, it's beneficial for me, and then it spills over to other schools when I go and talk to kids and educators and law enforcement officers. I get to say, hey, we just read about this report that just came out, but actually I was just at a school with 5,000 kids, and this is what they're saying. And of course, it changes. I travel the United States. It changes from city to city, state to state. But I'm overwhelmed with wonderful information. And, I think one of the things is kids talk. I mean, I think adults think that, they're not talking, they're not saying anything. They're just sitting going, yeah, internet safety, okay. They want to hear it. They want to learn about it. And they come up and talk after. I make sure I always leave time. They're tied into my social media, my Facebook, my Twitter. I'm getting, messages from them, comments from them. So I'm seeing so many and hearing so many different things from these kids that, really gives me an advantage when I go in and talk to the next school.
Are you noticing any commonalities in some of the questions that kids are asking today?
Sure. I think my biggest observation in general is that I think they just don't know any better. It's not, it's not a case of we have horrible kids who are doing horrible things, very, very dangerous. They're making the internet a bad place and they're ruining it for, my 11-month-old daughter. I think they just don't know any better. I am shocked time after time, day after day when I go into schools and you see kids there go, oh, shoot, I didn't know that. Or come up after and say, hey, I did this once. Am I going to get in trouble for that? And you're like, yes, and by the way, do you want to college to see that? Think about these things. So I think that is something that behaviorally is something that I'm seeing in common with all of these kids, that we don't have a nation full of, horrible kids that are making bad decisions. I truly am afraid for those kids that aren't getting this education or any form of education about responsibility and safety online, because I truly believe that they just don't know any better. They just need to be told.
Well, you alluded to the fact earlier that because technology changes so rapidly that it's difficult for kids and even adults to stay on top of what's new, and then by association try and stay within the confines of what they perceive to be acceptable.
Sure. I mean, and I think I see that more, I'd say about 50-50 down the middle, half the time to adults, half the time to students. And I think for parents, that is the biggest problem. They're saying, whoa, this site just came out, and now you're telling me that my kids were talking about this new site and this new trend and this new app. And so I think the parents are overwhelmed by it. The kids are on the front line of this stuff. They're the ones that I'm hearing that drive my presentations, that, are the reason that I have to change my presentation every single week because a new site, a new trend, a new fad, a new device has come out that kids are using for different purposes, good, inherently good. But of course, some things, some bad things are happening as well. But they're the ones they're the ones that's driving all of this. So I think it's so important that we pay attention to them, take inventory constantly. And like I said, they're really, really willing to talk. They just want someone who's not going to listen. I think another advantage I have is, I may look, 82 or something, but I'm kind of sort of close to their age. So I think I've seen a lot of the times, I'll ask the teachers to get out of the auditorium or wherever and just let me speak with these kids because they don't really want to talk to adults about these things, and they're happier speaking with me kind of one-on-one. I think it's all in the approach. It's all about, starting early, starting often. Of course, I have high school parents come up to me and say, well, I have a teenager. How do you expect me to go home now and just say, hey, what's going on with your social networking site? And I'll sit there and be the first one to admit, you have a huge challenge. I admit that. I don't have a high school student yet. She will be there eventually, but that's absolutely a huge challenge. That's why I encourage parents and educators early and often is the best approach with this.
Do you think that parents of today's generation of kids are at a significantly greater advantage that maybe they will be in another generation, just simply because of the fact that a lot of the technologies that kids are using today, mobile phones, the development of social media, simply weren't present when they were kids? Or do you think that this is always going to be a gap that will exist between parents and kids?
I mean, I think there's a gap, but I always encourage parents not to be discouraged, that this stuff is awesome. Like, get into it, get your hands dirty. Not only will it be fun for you, just on your own and for your own entertainment or for your own well-being, or heck, it can help you with your business. Using social media or this new device or whatever it may be. But also, it is fundamental for you to understand these things. You don't have a choice. It's really not a choice. If your kids are on them and you want to make sure that they're safe and they're making good decisions, because let's face it, kids are great. These kids are kick butt. They're awesome. I love being with them. I like talking to adults, but I'd much rather sit in an auditorium of 2,000 kids and kind of talk about what's going on. It's really, really important that they do the same thing, because this gap needs to be bridged if we want to make sure that our kids are being safe. There are rules and regulations as a society that we place on children because developmentally kids aren't able to make the best decisions on their own, just psychologically and, like I said, developmentally. So I think we need to, as adults, parents, educators, be the ones who step in and kind of help them along. Not do everything for them, but help them along, because we do it as a society anyway, and with technology should not be any different.
Do you suggest any particular conversations that you'd like to see parents having with kids, and maybe how those might change over the years? So you mentioned earlier, parent of a teenager, that might be a different conversation than the parent of, let's say, an elementary school child.
Absolutely. I think it's all activity-based. I'm not saying sit down with a board game on the internet or something like that, but I think it's all, let's sit down and have a conversation. The statistics right now out, and there are so many different reports and statistics out about how much time kids spend with technology, with their mobile devices, on social networking sites. They're overwhelming how much time kids spend on these devices. Pull up a chair, sit down next to them, and let the conversation flow naturally. I find a lot of these this is why I've never done a guide, right? A guide to speaking to your children. When parents ask me, well, what do I say? If I were to place a guide out for what to say, it would change tomorrow. Every kid's different. Every household is different. My dad would not talk to me the same way. Your parents probably would talk to you. I think it's all organic. I think it's all just sit down, have a conversation. What are they doing? What are these sites you're on? I don't understand Facebook. And I really want to get on Facebook. You'll probably, from the teenager, they'll roll their eyes and say, please don't get on Facebook. But, I think sitting, again, early and often, just sitting down, getting involved, chances are their cell phones in their lap, their iPads in their lap, whatever it may be is in their lap. So just like you'd have a conversation at the dinner table, sit down next to them, pull up a chair and have a conversation and let it go where it needs to go.
You mentioned you do a lot of speaking and prefer to talk with kids, although you talk with parents as well. In those presentations or those discussions that you're having with kids, are kids talking about things that they're concerned about or they're worried about, or is it more of just kind of an interest or they're curious?
I'd say most of the time kids are talking about what they're worried about or something that happened to them, something that I touched upon that happened to them and what can I do about it? And, I didn't know that I shouldn't be sending these pictures. Interestingly, I said I wasn't going to go down to one particular topic, but sexting, right, is a question that I get, not just from high school students, unfortunately, Joe, from middle school students as well. I'm getting questions, well, what about consent? Isn't there, how come I can consent, at 16 to the age of sex, but I can't consensually send some pictures of myself naked when I'm 17? And this is why kids are the best, right? This is why these are fascinating questions. And I get a lot of questions about, but what if it was my boyfriend? What if it was my girlfriend? Consent. Unfortunately, where most of the time I have to say there's no such thing as consent when it comes to naked pictures, and think about whose hands those can fall into, on and on and on. But I think a lot of it is truly, it's not so much interest as so much as it is, oh shoot, I think this happened to me. Am I going to get in trouble for this? Or, one time a couple girls approached me and said that someone had doctored some pictures of them on a social networking site, extremely, extremely inappropriate pictures. These were 7th grade girls, posted them all over some adult website. So I think kids have legitimate concerns and they're worried because they don't know who to go to, who to talk to, who to report this to. That's why I just wish every single school in this country could have some sort of formal education on this, not just some program, you throw in a CD. I think kids roll their eyes at that, unfortunately. Some sort of education that these kids can have because they're really, really concerned. And I think that they're making some decisions where they're, sticky. Maybe they knew it wasn't a great idea to send a naked picture of themselves, but what are the consequences really? So I think they're very, very in tune. They're looking to find answers and help.
Yeah. So as you look forward to the year coming up, this school year that's on the horizon there, are you predicting any trends in technology or any trends in how kids will be using technology?
Yeah, I'm fascinated. Every school I go to is different. I thought MySpace was kind of gone and a thing of the past, and it generally is in most of the schools that I go to, but I went to a school in Texas a couple months ago, and I just happened to ask how many kids here have a MySpace account, and I'd say 90% of the kids raised their hand, and I was just blown away. It was an auditorium of 1,500 kids, 7th, 8th grade students, and so I think technology is extremely unpredictable. I will go out on a limb and say I think I'm noticing a lot of kids getting off of Facebook just because it's too cumbersome. Both my brothers, I have younger brothers, they both just got off of Facebook because they're like, it's just too much of a hassle. I have to upload pictures. My things are changing. I don't know why they're changing, timelines, and my mom's now on, and that's really annoying. And, so I think kids, it's unpredictable. And I think that's what's so awesome about this. I think a lot of adults are really scared about the unpredictability, and I totally understand that. But I think we should really embrace it. And I think that's really cool that kids are driving this and driving the way that your business functions, my business functions, larger social networking companies are functioning, technology companies in general. But I think a big trend that we'll see There's a lot of movements right now against cyberbullying. I love it. I love that kids are doing something about it. They're, grassroots movements that kids are starting. Unfortunately, they start as in general, as a result of something bad that's happened, which, I'm all about prevention as opposed to being reactive, proactive instead of reactive. But unfortunately, that's not the case a lot of the times. I'm really encouraged by kids standing up, a lot of reporting tools. I know some things have just changed on Facebook. I know you offer something as well. And I'm just encouraged that kids now know that there's a place to go, that you can see something, you can say something, and someone may actually do something about it, as opposed to just saying, I'm not going to report this because no one will do anything about it. So empowerment, kids are empowered. These kids are speaking, they're talking, and I like that. So that's a positive trend.
Absolutely. And something very specific with technology that I've just noticed in my own experience, and I mentioned to you, we have two kids that are right in those teen years coming up upon it. The move maybe away from Facebook towards Instagram.
Sure. And that's huge. I mean, with all of these things, you say that, and that's something that actually just changed in one of my presentations, is I feature a whole thing now on Instagram about taking control and, your privacy settings and who can see this. And I don't think kids understand that it's not just something you take a picture with, that it's also a social site, that all of these pictures, if you don't have your settings a certain way, can go into the whole field of millions and millions of members who also use Instagram, which is great. If you're taking pictures of the Eiffel Tower or your vacation, but it's maybe not so great if you have your picture of yourself in a bikini, or maybe something that you didn't want a million people to see. So again, it's all about just not knowing any better, just not having that information about, what happens when you take a picture and what are the possible consequences if you do take something that maybe wasn't a great idea. And I'm not even saying inappropriate. I've taken many pictures off of my social networking accounts, Instagram, whatever it may be, that I thought, ooh, that's a really bad angle, right? So it's not necessarily, anything provocative, but I think, talking about what happens with these things when you upload them, where do they go, where can they go, and what consequences, if you make bad decisions, that can have down the line. And on the other side of that, how cool is it that you can see someone's picture of, their vacation and say, ooh, I really want to go there, or, oh, I'd really like to do that. I just saw something on Pinterest the other day of someone posting something that they went to Hawaii and were thinking about going to Hawaii and one of the activities they did there. How cool is that I can get that information somewhere I, probably would have never been able to get that information before. So there are upsides and there are downsides, but I think the common thing with any technology that comes out is just this constant conversation we need to have about making good decisions and checking in to make sure that we're helping them make good decisions at the same time.
Absolutely, providing them with the guidance so that they can make some good decisions. I love those words right there. And without that knowledge, though, you're kind of left to coming and going where your friends are coming and going, which may not necessarily be the best places.
Right. And I think that's it, is that, again, I'm shocked. I'm always shocked at the reactions of all audiences when they say, oh, really? Instagram? I didn't know that my pictures didn't just stay on my phone. It didn't just go to my photo library. And I guess who wouldn't? I mean, who would really think I didn't know that until I did some research. And certainly I'm sure middle school kids aren't going in looking up safety features or privacy settings. This isn't the first thing on their mind. They want to share. They're excited to share. They're excited to take cool pictures that you can do cool things with. So let's just take a step back, say, do it up, have a blast, here's some limitations, and here, unfortunately there are consequences for bad decisions. So if you do make a bad decision, there could be a consequence. And it's a simple conversation that you can continue to have with your kids, and that I encourage all parents to have with their kids, because it's all about being proactive, not reactive.
Those are great words, great words. Hey, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share with us. And for folks that will watch this video, if they wanted to find out more about your work, where would they go?
I have a website. It's klgreer.com. And, on there you can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook. I write things all of the time. I blog for various sites, companies, and I really like to put information on there that is information I find to be good and helpful and beneficial, not necessarily information I get paid to put on there or anything like that. So I'm hoping people can go there and get some more information.
Authentic, timely, relevant information. Katie Greer, it's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Joey. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care now.
You too.